Hey guys, welcome back to Moe's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Air and Armor Wurzburg, Tactical Armored Warfare in Europe. This is a game designed by Bruce Maxwell, and it is published by Compass Games. Well, this is one of my most anticipated releases this year, and both of them are going to be from Compass back-to-back, Air and Armor and The Last Gamble, which comes out next month, but Air and Armor is up first, and it looks to be fantastic because I played this at Expo last year with Bruce, and the components were just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them again here on the table and sharing a look inside with you. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. Air and Armor employs a highly interactive game system with asymmetric rules modeling the different command and control capabilities of each alliance. The game simulates all major aspects of modern warfare, including reconnaissance, combined arms operations, air, helicopter, and artillery strikes, chemical and electronic warfare, and combat engineering. Multiple levels of hidden intelligence produce a true fog of war, providing plenty of opportunities for deception, surprise, and ambush. Play this game to experience what it would have been like to command a Cold War division in battle. This designer signature edition includes 12 separate scenarios, each depicting a unique battle situation. The game can be played in open mode or in hidden mode. In open mode, each player will know his own unit strengths, but cannot see his opponent's unit strengths. In hidden mode, each player's unit strengths will remain a mystery to both players until the moment of contact. The hidden mode system makes the game highly suitable for solitaire play. And for components, we get our rulebook, playbook, 2 22 by 34 inch maps, 6 counter sheets, 2 sets of charts and tables, 2 sets of sequence cards, 2 Warsaw Pact TO&E cards, 1 NATO TO&E card, a Warsaw Pact Tracks card, a NATO Tracks card, a Warsaw Pact Planning card, and Warsaw Pact Pool card, and a NATO Pool card, along with 2 10-sided dice. And we see an example of the map and the counters at the top here. Left-hand side, it says complexity is high, time scale is 1 turn equals 2 hours, map scale is 1 mile per hex, unit scale companies to regiments, number of players is 2 to 7 because this can be played in teams. Suitability for solitaire is high, and the average time to play is 3 to 12 hours based on the scenario, and it is recommended for ages 14 and up. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. All right, we have our 2D10, a red and a blue. Got a sticker here to correct an error on the map. Some errata. 4 pages of errata and clarifications. A bag with all the books and charts. We have our player aid cards here. And we have the counter sheets, nicely shrink wrapped. And then the maps, which are nice, thick cardstock. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. You take the 2 maps, you overlay one on top of the other, and you create a 34 by about 43.5 inch wide map. So it's going to be a good footprint on the table, but not gigantic. One thing to keep in mind is not every scenario is going to be played on both maps. You're going to have several scenarios that are going to use either map A or map B, so you're going to have a lot of one map scenarios. Don't have to have the table space for both maps all the time, so that's fantastic. Everything's very easy to read. It's a beautifully done map, and as I mentioned, cardstock paper. So this is not going to be your standard paper map. This is going to be nice and thick cardstock. As you can hear there, I picked up that corner. You can barely see it because I can't get the entire map on here, but it is a really well done map. Beautifully illustrated, and everything's very easy to read. The big orange lines here throughout the map, those are the Autobahn. The yellow are the Bundesstraße. You have cities, towns. You've got heavy woods, light woods, clear. You've got slopes, these brown marks here. These black lines here, these are going to be your impassable terrain. So these are the slopes that are too steep. These are the slopes that you can traverse. Very easy to distinguish just at a quick look. The bottom left, we have the Warsaw Pact off-map display. We also have the same on the other map because remember, we can use only one map for some of the scenarios, either A or B. So you're going to have all that information on both sides, A and B, for single map scenarios. Same at the other side, you have the NATO off-map display. Then you have the terrain key at the top, right, and left. Again, set so that way you can play one map at a time. But overall, a really gorgeous map, and it's going to be really built to withstand a lot of abuse because the cardstock maps are pretty fantastic. But you know what? Throw Plexi on it. You're not going to have to worry about it anyway. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. First up is the Sequence Card 1. Sequence of play summary at the top and the activation cycle summary at the bottom. On the back, we have the March operation cycle, Reserve operation cycle, and the Hasty Attack operation cycle. And that carries over to Sequences Card 2, Overrun operation cycle at the top, and the Close Attack operation cycle at the bottom. And we finish out on the back with the Assault operation cycle and the Fire Strike sequence. Next, we have the US Canadian TO&E, and that carries over to the back for the West German TO&E. Next, we have the NATO pool card. And lastly, for NATO, we have the NATO tracks card. Then we get to the Warsaw Pact TO&E. The first sheet carries over to the back. Then the Pact TO&E concludes on the third sheet. Then we have the Warsaw Pact pool card, Warsaw Pact planning card, and then last one is the Warsaw Pact tracks card. Then the last of the player aids are all in a charts and tables book, a 17-page full-color book. Inside of the front cover gives us a listing of all of the different charts and their associated page numbers. The first one, we get to how to read unit counters, reconnaissance table, screening table, Warsaw Pact fire support chart, main effort effects chart, NATO fire support chart, counter battery acquisition, artillery fire chart, mine attack table, air call table, flak strength chart, anti-aircraft fire table, hidden mode steps, combat results table, operations summary chart, and we have the formation interaction chart, West German Gegenangriff table, jamming table, ADM gas strike sequence, chemical warfare table, proximity effects chart, stacking limits chart, marker effects chart, retreat priorities chart, shatter table, engineering chart, bridge demolition tables, bridge fire strike chart, disruption effects chart, night effects chart, open mode contact procedure, hidden mode contact procedure, revelation table, air mobile operations, artillery pool chart, amphibious crossing table, terrain effects chart, fire effects chart, and then on the back we have a planning map for you to use. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game, and these are beautifully done counters. Everything's very easy to read on them. They have a nice feel to them, and they're nice and thick. At the top left, we have the aircraft. That is for both sides in the game, Warsaw Pact and NATO. Below that, we have the West German forces on the left, US forces on the right, and at the bottom right, we have the Canadian forces. On the next sheet, we have some administrative counters taking up most of the sheet, and then we have the start of the Soviet forces along the bottom. On the next sheet, we have a mix of administrative counters along with Soviet forces and the East German forces on the bottom right. On the next sheet, we have primarily administrative counters along with some Soviet forces and Canadian forces along the bottom right. More administrative counters on the next sheet. And on the final sheet, we have the remainder of the administrative counters as well as the remainder of the Soviet, West German, US, East German, and Canadian forces for use of the game. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 146-page full-color rulebook. Yes, it's 146 pages. On the inside of the front cover, we start off with the table of contents. That carries over for a couple of pages. That's going to give you all the different rule sections and their subsections and their associated page numbers. Now, one thing I want to say, because I know anybody who's not already familiar with the fact that there's a nearly 150-page rulebook is going to balk at that right away and say, wow, that's too much. But this is something that Bruce addresses right off the bat here with the design note. He says, the first 15% of this book simply describes the components of the game and the various units and markers, and then contains another 25% of detailed examples of play, along with design and play notes. Only 60% of the book are actual rules. So that's something to keep in mind. You're looking at larger font in the rules, as well as a lot of illustrated examples. And Bruce is really verbose with his rules, so that way there's very little ambiguity. There's no room for edge cases, or very little room. And that's why you have a longer rule book. The good thing is, like we've talked about before, Bruce and I are going to be doing a series of videos that will assist you in learning these rules. So look for those to be coming out pretty soon. You start off with the game components, game map, your cards, your dice, the glossary, unit counters, your ground units, how to read them, helicopter units, air units, and then there's some unit errata, step markers, game markers. A lot of this is all support information. We're just going to flip through that. Then we get into formations for both NATO and Warsaw Pact. And then we get to the game overview on page 24. So the first 23.5 pages are your support information. Then we start getting into the game overview on page 24, starting off with the action cycles, your cycle hierarchy, operations, your playing pieces, command, play modes, scenarios, winning the game, and then the sequence of play on page 26. Reinforcement phase, Warsaw Pact planning phase, maneuver phase, reserve phase, engineering phase, reorganization phase, and then the activation cycle. So it's going to be all broken down for you. Units, again, more information, hidden intelligence, dummy units, used and unused sides, unit splitting, some illustrated examples taking up most of the pages on these 2 pages, unit combinations, step transfers, command and control, headquarters units and the chain of command, command points, Warsaw Pact planning and operations, Warsaw Pact main effort. Then we get to the Warsaw Pact base and independent formations, NATO task forces. You notice these call-out boxes, these blue and brown ones. Brown ones are play notes, blue ones are design notes, where Bruce is going to talk about why he did what he did for different aspects of the game. Task force duration, expending NATO command points, NATO base and independent formations, operations, the march operation, operation cycles, hasty attack operation cycle, assault operation cycle, objective hexes. Again, illustrated examples. Executing your operations, reserve operations. And then we get to the interrupt actions, stacking restrictions, stacks and forces, your stacking limits, alliance stacking restrictions, masking, zones of control, ground unit movement, ground movement, minimum movement, road movement. Illustrated example of that over here. Example of the Warsaw Pact attack from March. Force movement, movement in friendly units, movement in enemy units. And we have some more examples over here on the next page. Crossing a minor river, crossing a major river, bridges, ferry crossings, river crossings and engineers, river combat, sitting duck rule, fire combat elements, and the fire combat procedure, absorbing hits. A couple more illustrated examples there. We get to advance, more illustrated examples sprinkled throughout. Infiltration fire, defensive fire, offensive fire, retreat fire, reaction for both NATO and Warsaw Pact, reaction in combat, reaction movement, reconnaissance points, reconnaissance attempts, acquisition markers, fire support assets, fire calls, forward observers, artillery, direct fire, indirect fire, artillery pools, defensive artillery support, fired markers, artillery fire and movement, rocket artillery, strikes, fire strikes, absorbing hits from a fire strike, disruption, counter battery fire strikes, ADM strikes, strike restrictions, off-map strikes, and air units, air points, air unit assembly, air calls, all your air information here, unit deployment, unit fire, attack helicopter units, attack helicopter unit assembly, helicopter movement, profiles, sorties, and fire at the top right, utility helicopters, the different units, the assembly, their transport capacity, and movement, SAM fire, flak fire, and aircraft results, and putting it all together on page 105. This case provides a series of examples of play designed to help players integrate all of the previous cases. So we get up to page 104. Now we're going to get into an extended example of play with plenty of illustrations. and they're kind of sticking together because these are glossy pages. So I'm just going to flip through them. Then we get to Air Mobile Forces on page 111, Air Mobile Command and Control, Air Mobile Operations, Helicopter Operations, Paradrops, Air Mobile Reinforcements, Headquarters Units, Headquarters Special Rules, Shatter, Special Shatter Cases, Shatter Effects, Engineering, Night, Military Bridges, Mines, Improved Positions, Obstacles, Bridge Demolition, Engineer Charges, Electronic Warfare. Then we get to the off-map participation, off-map range and combat. Then we have game-specific rules on page 128. Armored Cav screening. A couple more examples here on page 130. U.S. counter battery acquisition table. West German counterattacks. And then here's a stop on page 131. It says stop. Unless you wish to play with the following optional rules or to play solitaire, see case 45, you have reached the end of the rules. Proceed to the playbook and set up a scenario to play. So it's 146 pages. It actually stops at 131, except when you get into optional rules and then the solitaire rules, which are the hidden mode, which can be played either solitaire or head-to-head. Close attack. Well, actually, the first optional rule, let's go back here, was overrun. Then we have close attack, poison gas, and your gas tax decontamination. And the example of chemical warfare ends on 138, actually ends on 139. Then we have hidden mode play. This is how you're going to be playing solitaire. You're going to be playing in hidden mode. Like I said, it can be played solitaire or head-to-head. You can both play not knowing what you've got, not knowing what they've got. So that's the beauty of this system here. I think it's going to be pretty fantastic to have that fog of war, because even though units should be in a location and you should know what the strength of it is, not always is that going to be the case, because they run into traffic jams, they have breakdowns, things like that. Not all your forces are going to assemble at the kickoff point before you start your assault. So you're going to have to be dealing with things like that. We have all the examples of the hidden mode play, and then we are at the back of the rule book. And lastly, we'll take a look at the playbook. This is a 58-page full color book. On the inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents listing at all the different sections and their subsections and the associated page numbers. Start off with scenario play, then we get into the scenarios themselves, player notes, designer's notes, developer's notes, TO&E notes, index, and then the game credits. Start off with the scenario play, which is going to instruct you everything you need to know about setting up and playing your scenarios. That's going to go on for a couple of pages, and just like we saw in the rules, we're going to have these design notes and play notes called out in blue and brown callouts. Then we get to multiplayer games, Vassal and Play by Email Play. And then we start off with the scenarios, Thermopylae being the first. Have a couple of design notes, and then we start off with the scenario briefing for both Warsaw Pact and NATO. The map and game length, this one is going to be played on map A, which is the one that we looked at on the right-hand side. Map B is on the left. Again, you're not going to be using both of the maps for all scenarios. You're going to have several one-map scenarios and then a few of the two-map scenarios. Then we have the starting unit deployment for both NATO and Warsaw Pact, including the numbers of support that they get, ADM points, air points, things like that. Then we have the reinforcements and how they're going to be brought into the game. And we have the NATO victory conditions and the Warsaw Pact victory conditions, as well as the scenario notes for both NATO and Warsaw Pact. Then we get to the second scenario, Race for the Bridges. They're all going to follow the same format as far as giving you all the information. Then we get to the third one, Out of the Fog, The Last Reserve. Counterattack is Scenario 5. Kameradschaft is Scenario 6. Then The Wolf's Jaws is Scenario 7. Scenario 8 is Attack on an Exposed Flank. Scenario 9 is Bolt from the Blue. That goes on for several pages. Then we have Attack to Relieve a Pocket. Forward Defense. And then finally, Hammer and Anvil being the final scenario in the scenario book. That carries over for a few pages. Then there's some player notes for both NATO and Warsaw Pact. Designer's notes on page 34. Those are going to go on for a few pages. Then we get to the developer's notes on page 42 from Fred Schwartz, the developer. Then we have the TO&E notes for both Warsaw Pact as well as NATO here. Then we get to our index, and that will finish out the rest of the book with the full index for us to use as we need. Then we are at the back of the scenario book and this fantastic picture. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Air and Armor Wurzburg, Tactical Armored Warfare in Europe. This is a game designed by Bruce Maxwell, and it is published by Compass Games. Well, as I said before, I've really been looking forward to this all year. It's one of my two most anticipated releases, this and The Last Gamble, which comes out next month, also from Compass. Played this with Bruce in November at Compass Expo, and it was fantastic. And seeing the finished product then was awesome, but now having it in my hand, it's even better. It is just really a top-notch quality production, again, from Compass. Love the map, nice thick cardstock. Everything is well documented in the game. The counters are fantastic. All the player aid cards you're going to need. The map is really simple to read and follow along with. And again, you're not going to need both maps for all the scenarios. You're going to have some that'll be one, some that'll be the other, and then some that will be using both maps. I know the big question that a lot of people have is about the rule book, because it is 146 pages. There is a lot to take in. It is a deep game, but it's not going to be something that is going to be super difficult to learn. Like we said, 146 pages, 15% at the beginning is just all support information. Then another 25% of the book is going to be illustrated examples. About 60% of it is actual rules. So that hopefully will help you not feel that it's going to be that big of a hill to climb to get into this game. Plus, Bruce and I will be putting out a series of videos that will help break down all the rules for you and make it easier to digest, and also easier because you're going to be seeing them as well as reading them in the rules. So hopefully the rules will be more of a support for you, along with the videos that we'll be doing to get you into this game and really enjoying yourself, because this is a fantastic game. The addition of the hidden mode that was done by Fred Schwartz, the developer, is just fantastic, because you can play it solitaire and really truly have a good solitaire experience, or you can play it head-to-head with the hidden mode, and both players are dealing with really good fog of war. So fantastic experiences ahead in playing this game, and this is the first in the series. Next one is Fifth Corps, which has already been submitted and will be printed by Compass. Hopefully we'll see that pretty soon as well, and then they're going to be taking this to World War II, the system. So if you put the effort into learning the one system here with Wurzburg, it's going to give you a longer gaming life, because you're going to have all these other games in this system that you already know how to play. You'll just have to learn the nuances and the new rules for each of the new releases. But either way, if you're into modern warfare, hypothetical World War III, this is definitely one that you're not going to want to miss. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.